Hello? Okay, so I think I'm running properly right now. So my name's Ricky. I'm the program director for China this year. I'm a senior right now at Brown University, studying political science and urban studies. Um, yeah, I did China program 2 years ago. It was my first time outside the country, so it was a really fun experience. And yeah, I mean, I can't recommend it enough for people. It's uh, it's very distinct from a lot of the other programs just because of the teaching partner and living partner interactions that you have. I really grew a lot from it, and I learned a lot about a culture that was very distinct from my own. So I'm just going to give you guys a rundown. Enough about me. Just get right into sharing the program with you guys. So, so really quickly about the China program. Our official dates right now are we will arrive in country on the 10th of July. We'll do our orientation in Shanghai, and then after orientation, we'll make our way to Nanjing to meet up with Nanjing University volunteers, who will be our teaching and living partners. And from that point on, we'll teach until our midpoint break, where we will most likely travel to Hangzhou and spend our midpoint break there for a couple of days, then return and finish out our teaching for the program. So, like I said, one unique aspect of the China program is the teaching partner situation. It's very nice to have someone you can sort of rely on all throughout the program, someone who understands the problems you had in class, for example. And so I think it's a really unique tool that we have available to us in the China program. And it certainly makes navigating China a lot easier because, as I'm sure many people know, navigating China without knowing Mandarin is a pretty difficult task. And it's always nice to have people who can help you get around. So just some quick facts. We will be in Jiangsu province. We'll be in Nantong, and more specifically Rugao. And as I said, our midpoint break will likely be in Hangzhou. As of right now, we have about 7 spots available to sort of fill our 13 to 15 volunteer quota. We don't have a language requirement, but we do have some volunteers that are currently being looked over that do speak Mandarin, just because we think it would be very valuable to have someone who can speak Mandarin to help the other volunteers navigate and just in general cultural exchange. So something I'm looking for in a lot of my volunteers is someone who's enthusiastic and someone who's open to new ideas. And certainly the first time you arrive in China and you begin teaching, you will definitely learn how important it is to be able to adapt and become, I guess, malleable to what the situation requires of you. So for example, in my experience, I arrived in China and my idea of what my students' language level was a lot lower. So I came in with a very basic plan, and halfway through the class, I realized it was too basic for them. So I had to quickly change in gears and sort of get one ready. And that situation might happen for a lot of volunteers. So it's just something we have to learn to adapt to. But at the end of the day, I just really want someone who's optimistic and who will stay motivated throughout the program, because it is a long few weeks, and sometimes things will take away your motivation. And I ultimately want people in my program who can stay motivated throughout that time and keep all of your fellow volunteer spirits up. So teaching is typically done at a local school for about 4 hours a day in the morning. You'll usually have 30 to 40 students. Some classes might be bigger, some classes might be a little bit smaller, but for the most part, that's where our range is. Um, your teaching partner will be there to help you translate and direct your students. And it's really helpful because sometimes you don't want to have to break the flow of the classroom and have to look up a word or try to understand what they're saying. So having a teaching partner is really valuable to keeping the flow of the classroom going. Um, and the ages of the students, this is the part where things get sort of for me personally, I was told I would be teaching fifth graders, and I did. But I also had one of the principal's nephews come into my class, and he was really passionate about learning English, so he was with the rest of the fifth graders. So situations like that will, possibly come up. I always say, like, the more the merrier. But yeah, I mean, it's great to have a lot of varying opinions and ages. So you might have that in your program. When you're teaching, a lot of the questions that the students might have are usually related to like how colloquial something is, or how things are like in your country. So I think that's a large part of what gets them engaged, is learning a lot about other cultures. So feel free to sort of incorporate that into your lessons. If you feel like one aspect of American culture or your country's culture is particularly interesting, I'm sure they will definitely think the same. And bringing things from your home country to China is also it's a really special way to sort of get them to engage with the outside world. So onto your living situation. You'll be living most likely in a traditional Chinese village. You will probably have access to, you will have access to running water and electricity for the most part. Wi-Fi is sort of host dependent. So lucky enough to get a host family that has Wi-Fi and air conditioning, then you will be very fortunate. But it's not guaranteed for everyone. So definitely be, I guess, wary of that you might have to withstand that. Dietary restrictions. So in my experience, we had a couple of vegetarians in the volunteer group that I did 2 years ago. And the host family is very accommodating. The principals in particular at the schools definitely tried their best to make it try to accommodate to vegetarian restrictions. And for the most part, while they might not understand why you would be a vegetarian, they certainly do try their best to be as accommodating as possible. And that's what I loved the most about our experience there. I could not say enough wonderful things about our principal and my host family. They were just very accommodating, very Sorry about that. So I was screen sharing. So as I was saying, I don't know how much was cut off, but the program structure usually goes: you arrive in Shanghai, we do orientation as well as getting things like cell phones and currency exchange sorted out before we leave for Nanjing, where you will meet up with your teaching partner and your living partners. And then once there, we will do some more orientation, and we'll do a couple of sort of excursions with your living and teaching partner and fellow volunteers. And then the final day, we leave for your village, where you will meet your host family, and the following days where you will start teaching. So once we arrive in village, you will mostly be interacting solely with your fellow volunteers that are in your village and your living and teaching partners. So the morning schedule is usually broken up into: you have breakfast at the school usually. That's how it was for me. You do your teaching. You might take a midpoint, a break in the middle of there, and then you continue teaching until about noon. And then at noon, you have lunch, and then at that point, it's up to you to sort of decide how you want to schedule your day. You can have some time to interact with your fellow volunteers, or you can also do lesson planning with your living and teaching partners as well. It just depends on what you want to do with the rest of your day. So onto our midpoint break. Once we do about 2 weeks of teaching, we'll do our midpoint break, which is a weekend where we usually spend time outside of the village, outside of Nantong. And we try to visit somewhere nearby. For most likely will be Hangzhou. In my year, we did Suzhou, both really great destinations. And during that time, you can spend time with your fellow volunteers you haven't seen for a while, and sort of share your experiences and maybe teaching strategies that you think were really effective for you that maybe they want to try. And so that'll be a weekend about midway through the program. And then after the midpoint break, we depart back to our villages and we continue teaching for the last 2 weeks. And then the closing ceremony, we did closing ceremonies at our individual schools, but I also want to do closing sort of, I guess, excursions and dinners with all the volunteers. And so that'll probably take place around the end of the program, so August 11th, 12th, and 13th. And that will be, the most part, the structure of the program. So yeah, a lot of people sort of, it's easy to get lost and feel isolated while you're in China. So I encourage all of you to keep me updated on any problems or any questions you might have through email or WeChat, which will be prominently used in country. So anything that you need to ask me, please do. I'm there to help you guys. I am fully available whenever you need me. So yeah, I mean, this is just sort of running back what I already told you. Usually when we're in Nantong, you'll be split up into 3 to 5 American and Chinese volunteers in a village, and then the rest of you will be assigned to other villages. This is usually the structure of your day. It can vary a lot depending on the day specifically, but I definitely looked forward to dinner with my host family the most. It was really the most time you get to spend with them and just enjoy being in their company in general. I have a lot of really great experiences from that, and I think you will too. So about the weather. So since it's during the summer, China is a very humid environment, and it will definitely get very hot. I was probably sweating more than I've ever sweated in my life while I was over there. So drinking lots of water is definitely essential. Don't worry though, usually there will be water provided or very available. So definitely be sure to be careful of that. Definitely sure to be wary of bugs. Mosquitoes in a humid environment are pretty common. So just always be ready for that. So in village, the food is amazing in my opinion. since it's all very local, and sometimes even like from the very home that you're staying in. The food is really fresh, really great. Usually we have some sort of rotation, like the families will have, a certain meal on a certain day. And it can get repetitive at times, but it's also just, it's really, you have to understand that they aren't in a position to provide you with very different foods, but they do try their best. And you should really be respectful of like any, they will be respectful of any dietary restrictions you have, but I assure you the food is great. So discrimination, it can occur in a lot of different ways. You'll not very commonly be straight up denied service or denied because you're a foreigner. It's a largely, you're sort of seen as a commodity over there because you're so rare, especially in these villages that aren't near the tourist centers of like Beijing and Shanghai. A lot of these people haven't seen anyone that wasn't Chinese in all their lives. So you might occasionally get someone who's, walks up to you and wants to take a picture with you because you're blonde or because you're tall or because you're black. A lot of these interactions are just something we have to be respectful of. So if you, personally have an opposition to that, just be respectful and let them know that you're not okay with it. But if you are, feel free. It's just sort of a part of living there. So I mean, yeah, just in general, I don't really have to say much about modesty. Just it's going to be hot. Obviously, dress light, but be sort of modest in how you dress. Just be in general respectful of the environment that you're in. Homosexuality is not a particularly controversial issue, but it's sort of not a common topic to be brought up. So if I had to say, I mean, if you could avoid talking about it, please do. But I mean, I would personally try to avoid conversations like that unless they're engaged by the host family themselves. And then yeah, the same sort of goes for the politics conversations on a lot of topics in China. They're definitely touchy subjects. Some of them you might disagree with personally, but I would really encourage you to sort of just not say anything if you don't have anything nice to say. And yeah, just sort of moving on to, I guess, the language. Like I said, no language requirement for the program. It is really nice to have some key phrases to be able to like say thank you or say hello or ask for directions. So I would probably recommend you learning a couple of those phrases and be ready to sort of use them. But usually you'll be accompanied by a living partner or someone who's one of your fellow volunteers who speaks Mandarin, so you should be fine for the most part. So yeah, just some general guidelines for living with your hosts. Just in general, be respectful. You have time specifically allotted for spending time with your host family, so I would say definitely make the most of it. Also, if you decide to make trips, like with some of your other volunteers or maybe by yourself, definitely let them know because they are under the assumption that you're going to be there every day. And if something changes in your plans, please be respectful and let them know. But other than that, yeah, just generally be a gracious guest because after all, we are guests in this country. And yeah, definitely enjoy your time with them because it will run out faster than you think. So a lot of volunteers usually choose to spend their time traveling beforehand. Some also decide to do so after the program ends. I really just encourage you to sort of, make sure that you arrive on time when we need you. But other than that, I mean, you're free to travel after or before the program. The weekends are usually your free time, but I would recommend you, go, try to explore the city. It's not too far away, so you should be able to get there with a taxi or something like that, or the bus. maybe visit the mall, something like that. But I would definitely say don't stray too far from there, because you do have to be doing some lesson planning on the weekends. And yeah, I mean, it's a great experience. It's also what you make of it. So if you have something you're particularly set on doing, feel free, but just be sure to be, alerting your host family if you're not going to be in town, or if you're not going to be attending dinner some nights. So yeah, I mean, it's a great part of the program, and China's definitely a great place to explore. So flights. So for flights, it's better to get on it earlier rather than later. There's a variety of sites you can use to sort of get your tickets. It's a long flight, so be prepared. Bring some stuff maybe to do. Prepare some stuff on the flight. These are just general guidelines or general tips you should have when you're on a long flight. Yeah, definitely just get on it early. We have our dates finalized, so definitely be sure to get on that. Passports and visas. So this is the part where we sort of have the most urgency. As soon as you are accepted and we basically send out the email, you should be getting that, because passports, having a valid passport and a valid visa is, I mean, it's a disqualifier if you don't. So once we get that info to you, I would definitely say get on it, because it can take plenty of time for them to process it. And if, for some reason you're rejected, we can, try to sort that out. But it's really probably the most important aspect of the program is getting that visa situation sorted out as quickly as possible. Specifically, you'll be getting a tourist and L visa, just because this is the easiest for us to get to you. But we'll tell you details about that as we get them. So I personally would recommend you to go see your doctor before you leave. It's really important to make sure you're all vaccinated, and if they have any recommendations for you to get any vaccinations, definitely be sure to do that before you leave for country, because it's just better to have them done here. If you have any prescriptions, definitely, like I said, get them done here. Don't come over there and tell me you need some sort of prescription, because it could be particularly difficult to get that specific drug. For packing, definitely be sure to pack light. We're going to be going around a lot, and you'll definitely be buying a lot of stuff while you're in country, so it makes a lot of sense to pack light and be ready to take more things when you leave back for home. So like I said, cell phones, really important. Pretty much the most quick way to get in contact with me. And in general, just keeping in touch with me is probably something you want to do if you have any questions or anything like that. So like I said, pack light. Definitely be prepared for the worst weather in terms of heat. And then also just pack, some raincoat, some rain items, maybe even a swimsuit or a towel, and some flip-flops for showering and swimming, and just in general things like that. So be prepared, but also pack light, because it's a very hot climate. So for the most part, you don't really need to bring a lot of things that you would think you would need for a long excursion. So a lot of hygiene supplies are really important to bring. Mosquito repellent, for example, really important. Feminine products, really kind of hard to find in country, and floss and things like that are pretty much non-existent in China. So I would definitely recommend you get those. Make sure you have enough to last you the whole trip. Deodorant's another thing where it might be a little more difficult to find in country. So definitely be sure to bring these things and be prepared. So, I mean, it's difficult to say what you'll need for your class. It's sort of dependent on what you think is most important for your students to have. Paper usually is provided. You also have maybe a chalkboard or a whiteboard. You might have markers for that. I can't guarantee it, but for the most part, those are the only supplies you'll have. So the rest of the supplies you would either bring from home or you would buy in country. But a lot of the selection in country is also very limited. So definitely be sure to bring any things you think would be useful for your teaching process. And so, yeah, general items, you see all these items that you should probably bring with you. These are all available, like I said, on Learning Enterprises website under the China program and the addendum. Anything you think you need, just check here, make sure you have all these things. And yeah, that's all there is to say. Some optional items. And as for money, the exchange rate right now for Chinese currency varies a little bit. It's fluctuating, but generally it stays around where it is right now. I would definitely say being prepared to bring around $500 to $1,000 would be a good sort of jumping off point, just because you never know when you'll need money. A lot of the expenses are taken care of because you're with your host family, but things like hostels and food outside of your host family will probably have to be covered by you. So just be prepared to bring things like that. There are ATMs available, but there is a withdrawal fee, so just be prepared for that. And cards are not as prominently used in China as they are here and in Europe, so definitely be prepared to have cash on hand. And so any questions you might have, you can find them here. Definitely check the CDC and the State Department for any concerns you might have. And that is it for me. If you guys have any questions for me now, I'll be happy to take them. So ask away. So what experiences surprised me? A lot of the cuisine over there is a little surprising sometimes. It catches you off guard because you sort of, you think you've had it all, and then someone offers you, some food that you've never had before. I personally am open to pretty much anything in terms of food, so I was really excited to try different things. My first day there, the first day we arrived in village, we had, I think it was chicken feet. So it was a really interesting experience. I mean, like I said, I'm of the opinion that you should try whatever you sort of see over there. Granted, it's safe. So, I mean, it was a really great experience trying different foods that I really ended up liking. So feel free to, try new things. It's honestly what a lot of what it being in China is about, is doing things that are outside your comfort zone, but not too far out. So that was my experience. So I don't think there's really anything else that I should cover that I haven't. as always, I mean, my email is readily available if you have any questions about anything in particular. But yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty much all there. It's a lot of particulars and a lot of things we won't know till we're in country. So from my point of view, I think I've covered everything that I needed to. So yeah, I mean, anything you have in particular that you need to ask is open. So I guess if there's nothing else, no. So training just goes over a lot of basic procedures and like practices that we have. Sort of a lot of, I guess, just general basic things you need to know when you're in country and when you're teaching. A lot of the specifics are down to you. What you want to teach, that sort of thing, is entirely up to you as long as it's within reason. But yeah, I mean, it's really, I guess, generic, or not generic. It's a general training program, and a lot of the specifics sort of come up when you encounter a situation where you maybe don't know what to do, and you can contact me or Alissa or the country coordinator as well if you have any particular questions. So it's sort of just to get you ready for this teaching in China and sort of outside the classroom interactions as well. So if that's it, so like I said, my name's Ricky. My email should be, okay, well, it's china@learningenterprises.org. I am open to any questions that someone might have. Please feel free to contact me, and it was great speaking with you. So I'm gonna cut it off now. Have a good day.